Do not rush past this moment. There was a reason your eyes paused here instead of somewhere else. Out of countless voices calling for your attention today, something quieter, something deeper, gently led you here. Perhaps you cannot explain why. Perhaps you almost kept scrolling. Yet here you are, and that alone is enough to tell you that this moment was never ordinary. A quiet movement has already begun beyond what your eyes can see. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. You have asked for signs more times than anyone knows. Some of those prayers never left your lips. They lived only inside your heart, hidden beneath tired smiles and silent nights. You wondered whether heaven noticed those moments when you whispered into the darkness, hoping someone was listening. Every whisper was heard. Every tear carried a language no one else could understand. Every question reached farther than you imagined. Today, I ask only one thing of you. Stay with this message until the end. Not because these words themselves hold power, but because your heart has been preparing to receive something it almost gave up waiting for. There has been a decision. A choice. One that has quietly shifted the direction of two lives without either person fully realizing how much has already changed. You have spent so much time wondering whether someone still thinks about you. Whether your name still carries warmth inside another heart. Whether the distance between you was permanent, or simply unfinished. The answers have never been as simple as your fears suggested. Your soulmate has reached a place where pretending became heavier than honesty. For a long time they carried invisible battles. They smiled while feeling uncertain. They laughed while questioning their own future. They convinced themselves that letting go would somehow protect both of you. Yet every attempt to move forward without understanding why you remained inside their heart only brought them back to the same unanswered feeling. Some connections cannot be explained by logic. Some names continue echoing long after conversations have ended. Some souls recognize each other before circumstances ever allow them to stand together. That recognition has been growing quietly. Even during silence. Especially during silence. You believed nothing was happening because nothing could be seen. But heaven often works where human eyes cannot. The deepest roots always grow beneath the surface before anyone notices the tree. What appeared to be delay was often preparation. What felt like absence was sometimes protection. What looked like closed doors concealed unfinished rooms that were still being prepared. Your journey has not been forgotten. Not for a single day. Many times you questioned your own worth because someone failed to recognize it. You wondered whether you were difficult to love. Whether you had somehow missed your chance. Whether your story had already reached its ending before it truly began. Listen carefully. The value of your soul has never been determined by another person's confusion. Someone else's fear has never defined your destiny. Another person's hesitation has never rewritten the plans prepared for your life. You have mistaken waiting for rejection. They are not the same. While you struggled to understand your own path, another heart was fighting battles you never witnessed. They questioned themselves. They questioned timing. They questioned whether they deserved someone who saw the world the way you do. They carried old wounds into new possibilities. Every disappointment convinced them happiness always arrived with conditions. Trust became difficult. Hope became expensive. Yet something changed. Not dramatically. Not loudly. Quietly. Almost unnoticed. Like the first light before sunrise. There came a moment when they stopped running from the thoughts they had tried to silence. Instead of distracting themselves, they listened. Instead of burying memories, they allowed themselves to remember. Instead of asking how to forget you, they began asking why they never truly could. That question became the beginning of everything. Sometimes destiny does not begin with certainty. Sometimes it begins with a single honest question. Why does this person still matter? Why does their name still bring peace? Why does every road somehow lead back to them? Those questions opened doors no one else could see. And while they searched for answers, something unexpected happened. Their heart became quieter. The noise of comparison faded. Old voices lost their influence. The opinions of others became smaller. For the first time in a long while, they listened to what had always been waiting beneath the surface. Not fear. Not pressure. Not expectation. Truth. Truth often arrives softly. It does not compete with chaos. It waits patiently until the heart grows tired of pretending. Your soulmate reached that place. Not because life became easy. Because pretending became impossible. They realized they had spent more energy avoiding their feelings than understanding them. That realization became a doorway. One they never expected to open. While you wondered whether everything had ended, everything quietly began moving. Perhaps you remember nights when your heart felt unusually restless without explanation. Moments when someone unexpectedly entered your thoughts. Dreams that stayed with you long after morning arrived. Those moments were not meaningless. Sometimes the soul notices movement before the mind understands it. Sometimes peace arrives before explanation. Sometimes expectation awakens before evidence. You are not imagining every change within you. Your spirit has sensed that something unseen is shifting. Have you noticed how certain memories suddenly returned? How familiar songs carried different meaning? How ordinary moments unexpectedly reminded you of someone? These things often happen when invisible seasons begin changing. The world calls them coincidences. Heaven calls them whispers. The whisper has grown louder. Not loud enough to frighten you. Only enough to awaken hope. Hope has always frightened people who have been disappointed too many times. Perhaps you have guarded your expectations because disappointment once arrived wearing the face of certainty. Perhaps you promised yourself never to hope again. Yet hope keeps returning. Not because you are weak. Because your story is unfinished. There is still another chapter waiting to unfold. Not every silence is an ending. Some silences protect conversations that have not yet happened. Some distances preserve hearts until they are strong enough to recognize what truly matters. This is one of those moments. You have looked backward so often that you almost forgot to prepare for what is approaching. Lift your eyes for a moment. Not toward fear. Toward possibility. Because possibility has quietly been walking toward you for longer than you realize. There are conversations taking place that you know nothing about. Not necessarily spoken aloud. Many happen inside hearts. Inside moments of reflection. Inside long drives. Inside sleepless nights. Inside ordinary afternoons when memories unexpectedly return. Your soulmate has been revisiting moments they once dismissed. Words they overlooked now sound different. Gestures they underestimated now carry greater meaning. They are beginning to understand what was present long before they were ready to receive it. Growth often arrives disguised as regret. Yet regret is not always punishment. Sometimes it becomes the bridge leading someone back toward truth. You have spent enough time believing you were forgotten. Release that burden. Being unseen for a season does not mean you disappeared from destiny. Seeds spend long periods hidden beneath soil. No one applauds them there. No one celebrates them there. Yet everything necessary for future growth happens in hidden places. Your life has not been delayed because you lacked value. You have been growing where only heaven could see. And now, the hidden season is beginning to change. Do you feel that quiet anticipation inside your heart? That feeling you cannot explain? Do not ignore it. It may be gentler than excitement. It may resemble peace more than emotion. But peace has often been the first announcement that something greater is near. There is another detail you have not yet considered. The decision your soulmate made was not forced. No one pressured them. No one demanded it. No one convinced them. It rose naturally from a place of honesty they had avoided for far too long. That makes this moment different. Very different. Because decisions born from truth carry greater strength than decisions born from emotion alone. They reached a crossroads. One path offered familiarity. The other required courage. One path promised comfort. The other required vulnerability. For longer than anyone knows, they believed comfort would protect them. Now they understand comfort also imprisoned them. Something inside finally awakened. And once truth awakens, it becomes difficult to silence again. This awakening has already begun creating consequences. Small ones at first. Barely noticeable. Yet every small change creates another. Like ripples moving across still water. People around them have started noticing subtle differences. Their priorities shifted. Certain conversations no longer interested them. Old habits suddenly felt empty. Places they once escaped to no longer provided peace. When the heart changes, the entire world slowly rearranges itself around that change. You have not witnessed any of this. Yet that does not make it less real. Heaven has always worked beyond visible timelines. The greatest transformations often happen quietly before they become impossible to ignore. And there is one truth. One truth they have not spoken aloud. Not yet. They have repeated it only inside themselves. Again. And again. Every repetition made it harder to deny. Every repetition pulled them closer to a choice that once seemed impossible. If they continue down this path, everything they believed about the future will have to change. Everything. And that is exactly why the next moment matters more than either of you realize. Because the decision has already been made. But what happened immediately after that decision is something neither of you expected. And it is that unexpected moment that will begin changing everything. The moment after that decision was not filled with celebration. It was filled with silence. Not the empty silence that follows disappointment, but the sacred kind that settles over a heart when it realizes there is no turning back. Your soulmate stood in that quiet place where excuses could no longer protect them. They had crossed an invisible line, and although nothing around them looked different, everything within them had changed. Have you ever noticed how the most important moments in life rarely arrive with loud announcements? The world expects thunder. Heaven often whispers. This was one of those whispers. Long before anyone else noticed, a gentle certainty began replacing the confusion that had ruled their thoughts for so long. They stopped asking whether they should continue pretending. They stopped searching for reasons to ignore what their heart already knew. For the first time in what felt like forever, they allowed themselves to imagine a future that included honesty instead of fear. That single decision created another question they could no longer avoid. If this feeling is real, what happens next? The answer did not come immediately. Instead, unexpected memories began returning with unusual clarity. Small moments. Tiny conversations. A smile they once overlooked. Words that seemed ordinary at the time but suddenly carried extraordinary meaning. They remembered how peaceful they felt whenever your name entered a conversation. They remembered the strange comfort that appeared whenever they thought about you, even during difficult seasons. Most of all, they remembered something they had spent months trying to forget. The feeling that your souls somehow recognized one another before your lives ever made sense. That realization frightened them at first. Not because it was painful. Because it was impossible to explain. Logic searched for reasons to dismiss it. Their heart quietly refused. Every day became another conversation between doubt and hope. Every evening became another opportunity to run from the truth. Yet every morning the same feeling returned. Patient. Gentle. Unchanging. Have you noticed how truth never seems to grow tired? Fear demands constant attention. Truth simply waits. Your soulmate slowly discovered that no matter how many distractions surrounded them, one quiet thought always remained. You. Not as an obsession. Not as fantasy. But as unfinished peace. They finally understood something that had remained hidden for a long time. Some people enter our lives to teach lessons. Some arrive to open new doors. But a rare connection carries something deeper. It awakens the version of ourselves we were always meant to become. That awakening had already begun inside them. While this transformation unfolded, something equally important was taking place within you. Perhaps you believed nothing had changed. Yet your own heart had been preparing in ways you could not measure. Every disappointment taught you compassion instead of bitterness. Every delay strengthened your patience. Every unanswered question quietly expanded your faith. You thought you were simply surviving difficult seasons. In reality, you were becoming someone capable of receiving what once would have overwhelmed you. Preparation rarely feels exciting while it is happening. It often feels like waiting. But waiting with purpose is never wasted. Heaven wastes nothing. Not your tears. Not your questions. Not even the nights when you believed no progress was being made. Every experience has quietly shaped the person reading these words. And there is a reason you needed those changes before the next chapter could begin. Because what is approaching requires a stronger heart than the one you carried yesterday. Meanwhile, your soulmate found themselves standing at another unexpected crossroads. This one was different. No one else knew they were standing there. Outwardly, life continued as usual. Conversations happened. Work continued. Ordinary responsibilities filled the day. But beneath that ordinary routine, an extraordinary decision continued growing roots. There comes a point when the heart becomes too honest to return to old patterns. They had reached that point. The people around them noticed something without understanding why. They became quieter. More thoughtful. Less interested in proving themselves. More willing to listen than to speak. Even their closest friends sensed that something had shifted. One person finally asked them, "You've changed. What's different?" Your soulmate smiled. But they could not explain it. Because how do you describe a spiritual awakening that even you barely understand? How do you explain that one name continues bringing peace no matter how hard you try to silence it? Some experiences belong first to the soul before they can ever become words. So they simply answered, "I'm starting to see things differently." That answer was true. But it was only the beginning. Far away, without realizing why, you also began seeing life differently. The things that once consumed your thoughts started losing their grip. Old disappointments slowly released their hold on your heart. You began discovering moments of unexpected peace. Tiny reminders that your story was still moving, even when you could not see the road ahead. These moments were not random. They were gentle preparations. Because when two lives begin moving toward the same destination, heaven often prepares both journeys at the same time. Neither traveler sees the entire path. Each receives only enough light for the next step. That is why faith has always mattered more than certainty. Faith keeps walking when certainty has not yet arrived. There is another truth you deserve to hear. Your soulmate has not become perfect. Neither have you. Perfection has never been the requirement. Willingness has. A willing heart can grow. A willing heart can heal. A willing heart can choose courage over comfort. That willingness is becoming stronger every day. Even now, as these words reach you, unseen changes continue unfolding. Doors are quietly closing that no longer belong in your future. New opportunities are slowly appearing, though you may not recognize them yet. Old fears are losing their authority. New hope is learning how to breathe again. Nothing is happening by accident. Every delay has carried purpose. Every unexpected turn has protected something you could not yet understand. But there is one moment your soulmate has replayed more than any other. One memory. One sentence. One unfinished feeling. It returns to them when everything else grows quiet. It reminds them that some stories refuse to disappear simply because time has passed. That memory has become impossible to ignore. And very soon, it will lead them toward a choice that neither of you expected would happen so soon. Because another encounter is already beginning to take shape. Not by coincidence. Not by chance. But through a series of quiet events that have been unfolding long before either of you noticed. The first sign has already appeared. The second is closer than anyone realizes. And the third. The third changes everything. The third sign did not arrive with noise. It arrived in the middle of an ordinary day, disguised as something that could have been ignored by almost anyone else. That is how many divine moments begin. Not with impossible miracles that force belief, but with quiet invitations that ask the heart to pay attention. Your soulmate almost dismissed it. Almost. They paused for only a few seconds, yet those few seconds became the beginning of another unseen chapter. A familiar name crossed their path. Not through a dramatic announcement. Not because someone intentionally brought it up. It simply appeared. Unexpectedly. Naturally. And the moment they saw it, something deep inside them became still. There was no confusion this time. Only recognition. It felt as though a forgotten promise had gently awakened after a long sleep. For months they had convinced themselves they were moving on. They filled empty spaces with responsibilities. They buried emotions beneath routines. They distracted themselves with goals, conversations, and endless plans. Yet one unexpected reminder quietly unraveled everything they thought they had settled. Your name did not create fear. It created peace. That surprised them more than anything else. Because fear fades when truth finally speaks louder. And truth had begun speaking every single day. Have you noticed how certain feelings refuse to disappear no matter how much time passes? There is a reason for that. Not every lasting emotion is meant to be chased. But some are meant to be understood. Your soulmate has reached the point where understanding matters more than escaping. Every morning they wake with one question that keeps returning. What if the story isn't over? At first, they tried answering that question with logic. Then they tried answering it with distance. Then they tried answering it by pretending it no longer mattered. None of those answers brought peace. Only honesty did. And honesty what?